You're listening to the AfterBuzz TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Gene. Johnson.
The AfterBuzz Studios in Los Angeles, California. Presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is AfterBuzz TV's The Biggest Loser After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AfterBuzz TV's The Biggest Loser After Show.
I like your song choice, Steven. Good one. Welcome, everybody, to Season 15, and we are recapping episodes 6 and 7 because last week was the holiday, so happy belated Thanksgiving to everybody joining us. I have to say that I was so bummed that we weren't able to do last week's episode because of the holiday, of course, but because last week's episode was probably the best episode, I think, maybe of the season so far. So for those of you just joining me, my name is Lauren Mendoza. I'm your host, and Mackenzie is still celebrating the holidays today. So joining me in the control room is Steven. Say hi, Steven.
Hello.
Thanks for being with me today.
Of course.
Awesome. So let's get right into episode 6. We start off, well, since we have 2 episodes to recap, we're going to kind of move a little bit quickly through these. So I'll go through maybe the bigger points of last week's episode. So they start off with the challenge, okay? And this, you know, in the spirit of giving and Thanksgiving, they are going to be donating food, okay? And the challenge is each team has pallets of food, turkey, I think greens, all different kinds of food that they're going to be donating for other families in need to be celebrating their own Thanksgiving holiday. So the challenge is the team that can load up the truck the quickest and get all of the food from the pallets to the truck wins the ultimate prize. And every contestant goes into tears when they learn what the prize is going to be. The prize is that each member of the winning team will have a family member, they say one family member, come and visit them at the ranch. So naturally, everybody breaks into tears just at the thought of having their family come and visit them. Now, I don't know what you guys think. I love my family. I have family that live in Seattle, that live away from me. And I don't cry at the thought of seeing my family or winning a chance to see my family. And it doesn't mean that I don't love them. But I saw the way that they all reacted, and they've been away from their family, I guess at this point, for 6 weeks. I don't know if it's because they are going through such a difficult time and they're being challenged and pushed so much that it's extra emotional for them. But I almost couldn't understand it. I mean, the way they all reacted, you would think they were held captive overseas somewhere and they were being sent home. I kind of didn't understand it. Steven, have you ever cried when you found out you were going to see your family?
No. I mean, maybe when I was like an infant and I was like, oh my God, but no. Like, well, I don't get homesick. I'm so glad I'm a country away from them.
Oh, wow. A country? Where's your family?
Complete opposite side of this country.
Oh, okay, got it. Well, I don't know. Maybe we're heartless. I don't really understand it, but they cried so much when they realized that they could see their family. I kind of get it with the parents and kids, with that whole situation. I mean, I'm not a parent, but I can understand that would be really relieving to see your children. I think that would be really hard. But people that were going to see their mom, or even their fiance, I don't know. I don't know if it would bring me to tears. Either way, they all pushed themselves extra hard just because they all wanted that prize. It was a bigger prize than anything they've ever been offered. So they go at it. Every team's pushing. But the blue team wins. And the blue team, they tend to win a lot of challenges. At some point, you think the white team is actually going to win, but that doesn't end up happening. I apologize because I'm sick and that's why my voice is so raspy. When the blue team, they get their families to come in. So Hap, this is the best, and I was actually kind of glad that he won this prize. Hap gets to meet his son, his baby son, for the first time, which I thought was so great. And he thinks that he's only getting one family member to come and visit him, or maybe his wife with his little baby. But they also bring in his 2 cute, adorable little daughters. So Hap is like so excited. Hap's like 25. He's got 3 kids. I don't know. To me, that just seems like a lot. But I don't know. I think maybe us who live in LA, I think people tend to have babies a little bit later. So I tried to put myself in Hap's shoes. And I mean, for him, I was so happy that he got to meet his son for the first time. So that was a big moment. Holly, we saw her mom come, who she says is this huge influence in her life. And I can totally relate to that. So that was very cute for Holly to spend time with her mom. Her mom was so amazed at her weight loss, as she should be. Matt, we get to see him with his fiance, who are such a cute couple, by the way. They seem like they're really good friends. Aside from just being a cute couple that really loves each other, his fiance is so supportive of him. We all know from the beginning of the season that Matt skipped his wedding. Well, I don't want to say skipped his wedding. They postponed the wedding so that Matt could actually go through this entire journey. So to see him with his fiance and for her to be so happy for where he's at already was really nice to see. And I think it was great for Matt to kind of recharge him. Bobby, now this was the bigger storyline, I think, in the episode. And this was, I mean, I heard about the next day, the breaking news of what happened with Bob and Bobby. So Bobby's parents come to see him, and Bobby reveals to the camera and then later to Bob that he's never openly discussed his sexuality with his parents, and he is gay. So he sits down with Bob and has this heart-to-heart, and Bob, I don't know if we all didn't know this. I think I knew this, but Bob says he's never talked about his sexuality on the show, but that he's gay. And he comes out on the show. No one's ever heard Bob Harper ever talk about his sexuality. So it was a big episode, I think, in that sense. And a lot of news bureaus were talking about it afterwards, that Bob came out. If you follow Bob on Instagram, which I did at one point, you saw Bob like post pictures with the guy. And then if you went to that guy's page, this is me apparently being some kind of like Instagram stalker. But if you went to that page, it really looked like Bob was in a relationship with this guy. So I kind of figured that Bob was in a relationship with another guy. To me, it wasn't this breaking, profound news. But it was a big moment for Bob because he made the decision to openly discuss it. And I understand probably for a celebrity, it's not the easiest thing to do. So Bob and Bobby sit down. They have a heart-to-heart talk. And Bob opens up about his experience when he came out to his parents at 17. And just really kind of offers his words of encouragement and says, you know, I met your parents now that they're here. And they seem like nice people. They seem like smart people. I really feel like you telling them is going to be okay. They're proud of you. You know, what's there really to worry about? And Bobby, his concern was that he would be a disappointment, I think, because his family was so traditional. So that was one of the bigger moments of the entire episode, was Bob and Bobby talking about their sexuality. Although we never saw in the episode Bobby have a sit-down conversation, which is probably for the best not to come out to your parents on television, because if you're already worried about them being upset or maybe not liking it, they probably wouldn't like being put in that situation where they have to react on camera. However, we can assume that the conversation happened, because if it didn't, then his parents found out by watching the episode, which they probably wouldn't want to find out that way either. So that was one of the bigger storylines, and such a cute moment to see the blue team kind of come together with their family. Then we see them later all sit down for a Thanksgiving dinner with their families and with Bob, just kind of expressing their gratitude, as I think so many families did across the country, talking at their Thanksgiving dinner about why they're thankful, you know? Steven, did you have a good Thanksgiving dinner?
I did. It was enjoyable.
Did you sit there and talk about what you're thankful for?
No, we ate and then we played Cards Against Humanity.
Oh. So yours was a little bit different, but that's okay. Love it. After that, we see all the teams basically going through their challenges, their workouts. Let's cut to the weigh-in because we do have another episode to get to. And just to get straight to the chase, this was a bit of a shocking weigh-in for me. Really wasn't expecting this. The blue team actually pulled the lowest percentage at this particular weigh-in, and even more shocking, Holly pulled the lowest weight and was sent home. So she fell below the red line. And aside from it just being surprising, knowing that she's this Olympic athlete, she has such discipline, she works so hard, it was just one of those low numbers. I think she pulled like a 2 or a 3, and kind of you really couldn't really explain why she pulled such a low number when she works so hard. But even more shocking than that, to me, and I don't know what you guys think when you watch the episode, was Bob's reaction. I mean, they're always a little upset when one of their favorites or any of their teammates go home. They don't want to lose. They want to keep their contestants in as long as possible, not just for the game, not just for their health, but also because of the relationship that they've developed with their contestants. But Bob, I think Bob was even more upset than Holly, who was being sent home. Bob burst into tears, almost uncontrollably. You saw it on his face. He looked like a little kid that lost his best friend. And I think what was really obvious throughout this season with Bob and Holly's relationship, I mean, we all knew Bob was a little bit starstruck by her because she was an Olympic athlete. And, Bob's really into CrossFit and heavy weightlifting. And so he just really admired her for her career, and for everything that she's accomplished. And I think Bob lost a little bit of an idol on the show. I think he in a way looked up to Holly just as much, maybe more than Holly was even looking to him. I know that, Holly gave her little speech about how much Bob means to her and how she feels lucky to call him a friend. Bob did the same for her. It was very emotional. But I think that, Holly got the encouragement that she needed, and Bob made her realize, which is what she continued to talk about in the last episode, was that you can be small and strong. And we see later on in this next episode, when we see where she's at now, that she is still reminding herself of that and embracing that idea, because no one ever told her that, I guess, before. So I would say Bob was a little bit of a shocker last episode for me, because I've never seen Bob cry so hard. And I kind of laughed. I also felt a little sorry for him, and I was also very sad to see Holly go because I really like her. So that, I guess we'll say, wraps episode 6. However, actually, before it wraps episode 6, after Holly leaves, Allie comes in with the shocker that she is not the only one going home. So at the very end of last episode, we're led to believe that there's going to be a double elimination, and we're not going to know until we actually come back. Well, let's cut to tonight's episode. Episode 7 of season 15 picks up right where it left off in the weigh-in room. And I kind of was wondering this, but I wasn't positive. I didn't think it was going to be a double elimination because it was so predictable. I knew they were kind of teasing this a little bit. Rather than being a double elimination, what they did, this was, I would say, the challenge of this episode, since we didn't really have a team challenge. They spun a wheel, and one contestant from the ranch was going to be going home with their trainer, and that contestant would come back at the weigh-in, and the weigh-in of their team would solely depend on their weight or their weight loss. So there's a lot at risk, and it was really interesting because it cuts to everybody's reaction when they're hearing this news, and they're all just praying that it will not be them. They don't want the weight of their entire team to rest on them. And some of them don't want to go back to the situation or the environment that got them there in the first place, because it's not that easy, and they don't feel ready to go home, and they don't think they're going to be able to lose as much weight as they will on the ranch. So the way that Allie led this and the way that the person was picked was each teammate would walk up to the wheel that they would then spin and put their picture on the wheel. So I think everybody kind of was like, oh, I think I'm going to put it over here, thinking they're going to get lucky and it's not going to land on that particular spot. So they kind of scattered their faces a bit. And there was only one contestant that said he was actually praying to be the one that was selected, and that was Jay. He said, to be completely honest, I would love to go home and see my wife and my family. I want my family to see where I'm at so far, to see what I've accomplished. And he personally feels like it would help refresh him to keep going. He was the only one that thought that and wanted that. And you know what? Luckily, it landed on him. Oddly, it landed on him. But apparently his prayer worked, and Jay was selected to go home. So Jay was so excited. He was like, yes, he was so happy, visibly happy. He had no reservations about it. Jillian, on the other hand, was pissed. You could just see it in her face. She was so upset, rolling her eyes. And I think her reasoning for that was not just because, I don't think, to be completely honest, at this point, she had the most faith in Jay that he could actually do it and pull a big number. But she was also saying that she needed to be there for Marie and Toomey because, let's be honest, the white team is down to 3 members. That's not good. That is low. For some reason, Jillian, for as great of a trainer as she is, she tends to lose her team a little bit quicker, at least from what I can remember of the previous season. So Jillian is not happy, but Jay is happy to be taking her home. And they go home to Jay's hometown, Farmingtown, Missouri. And before we cut to Jay's trip, we get the glimpse of Holly, as we are always promised when one player goes home that we're going to see them at the beginning of the following episode. We get to see Holly, who was eliminated last week, and she looks amazing. So in total, at this point, she's lost almost 100 pounds. She went from 351 when she first started on the ranch to 360, and she looks insane. And even, I think, even bigger than the weight loss and her, you know, what she took from the ranch, which was Bob's lesson in that I can be smaller and stronger and healthier and stronger. You know, she mentions in this moment when we see her that she for so long loved being big, and she identified with that, and that was who she was. And she attributed her size to her success as being an Olympic athlete. And so she appreciated her weight, and she loved that until she then later on in life realized that it's also unhealthy. So now she's just kind of embracing this new idea that she can still compete. And she is now training for her first competition to compete in about a year from now, which will be a qualifier for the American Open. And we learn that her next goal is to medal in the 2016 Olympics. So right now she's training to be able to lift the same amount of weight or more as she was able to lift on the ranch, which would then prove the point that she could be smaller, but just as strong, if not stronger, than she was with all the weight added. So it was exciting to see Holly, and I have no doubt that when we see her again at the finale, she's going to look insane, and who knows what she'll be lifting at that point. She'll probably surpass her goal. I don't even doubt it. Then we cut to the ranch in this episode, and we see Delvette. Delvette's always, during his work, it's always kind of, you know, giving his like motivational speeches. I'm telling you, I think if he isn't already, or if he hasn't been doing it, Delvette should be a motivational speaker. But he set up basically this obstacle course for his contestants, which I really like. I was watching them work out, and I was thinking, if I did that for myself, maybe working out would be a little bit more fun rather than always being in the gym and always using the same equipment. I think it kind of gives you more of a challenge. And if you're moving from one little, I don't know, one obstacle to the next and focusing on getting to that next step, I think you're focused more so on doing the obstacle course than you are on the fact that you're actually exercising. Steven, have you ever done an obstacle course?
I have not.
No? Would you want to?
Actually, kind of, yeah. I thought about doing the Tough Mudder. I just never have time or something like that.
Oh, you have time. You just have to prioritize.
I go to the gym at like 2 a.m., Lauren.
Well, then it looks like you're prioritizing. But I don't know. I was watching this and I thought that looked like fun to me. So I kind of like that Dalvette tries to incorporate different activities. I feel like with Jillian, we see a lot of the same things. She doesn't really try out, at least in my opinion. You guys tell me what you think, but I don't feel like she tries anything really new.
You need to do something that takes your mind off what you're actually doing.
Yeah.
And you'll burn more calories if you're doing something that is fun or not even so much fun, but it's just busy, than you will if you're focusing on a treadmill looking at the clock. I always cover the clock on a treadmill, for instance, because it feels like it's going forever. Unless you're listening to music and you're just jamming out.
Yeah, because if you don't cover it, you constantly are looking at the time. I do the same thing.
And it makes you go out of breath even faster.
Yeah, and that's why I think, I mean, I know Jillian's actually big on this, on interval training. So it's like, let's say you're on the treadmill, you might sprint for a few seconds, then you might walk at an incline, then you might slow down, and kind of having your heart rate fluctuate going higher and lower, and that's actually what increases your calorie burn. So that's kind of her way of switching it up, but I really liked all that he kind of goes from the gym and then outside and then sets up this obstacle course, and in this time, he pulls Ruben aside, and he, I guess, went to Ruben's mom and got Ruben's old high school football jersey that he wore as a 17-year-old. And I think he was trying to do this to kind of re-encourage him. He said something about wanting to rediscover that athlete inside of Ruben. And I love that Dalvette said that. I'm sure I've said this before on the show. I know I've talked about this with Mackenzie, but I know as somebody who was an athlete in high school, and you kind of identify, I know we see it later on too with Rachel, as she really identifies with that time of success in her life when she was this optimal athlete. And I totally relate to that and understand. And I was trying to put myself in Ruben's shoes thinking, oh my gosh, if somebody brought me right now my old high school volleyball jersey, I think I would just like, I don't know. I really do think like putting it on would make me want to kick some ass, probably on the volleyball court. But either way, if it got me out on the volleyball court, I would have so much fun. And I think it would just re-energize me, you know, kind of bring you back to what your full potential was, you know, because you lose a little bit of that when you get out of it. And so I like that Dalvette made that attempt. I don't know that it worked. Ruben is very low key. I mean, he's a funny, fun, personal guy, but he doesn't get really excited about anything, you know, or really enthusiastic. I think he has more of a subtle, sweet way. So you couldn't really tell if bringing this jersey back to him made much of a difference in his morale or, you know, in his motivation. But I tried to put myself in that position, and now I really want to find my old high school jersey. And I'll let you know if that works for me. We'll see. Then Dalvette, well, then we cut to the white team, and I love that they do this, and they've done this before in all the previous seasons. We know Bob and Jillian are best buds for life, so the white team who thinks, you know, Maria and Toomey, who think they're going to be at the ranch alone, really aren't. Bob takes them and has them work out with him and the blue team, and, you know, the coaches always emphasize this. It's not about blue, white, red team, and Bob says this, and it's about them. It's about their own personal journey. It's about them focusing on themselves. And Bob takes on Maria and Toomey and says, you know, I'm doing this because if I was the one away, out of state, somewhere else, off the ranch with one of my teammates, Jillian would do the exact same thing for me. So, and you know what? I think it really re-energized Maria and Toomey to work out with somebody different, to work out with a different team. and to be doing a different routine. You know, it's just a whole new element for them, and I think it really showed. They were showing Marie, and she looked like she was killing it all throughout the workout. I was like she was just blasting out some of those workouts, surpassing some of the people on the blue team, I thought. So I thought this was a much needed change for the white team, not just for Marie and Toomey, but then we see Jay go home. And like I said, I think Jillian was not confident that Jay could really pull off a big enough weight to save his team from elimination alone. I don't think he could do this alone. So Jay comes into his house, and of course he's greeted by a ton of family, his wife, his kids, his parents, and all kinds of family and friends. Then he later brings in Jillian, who is welcomed with a very warm welcome from his family, and they stand there, they laugh. Jillian tells jokes about Jay, and I'm so glad that somebody from his family actually brought this up, because I noticed it in last episode. Jay, I mean, I guess he's been doing this the entire time, but for some reason last episode it stuck out to me. Jay wears his cowboy hat all the time. He was doing push-ups with his cowboy hat on. I don't know what I think about that. It just looks so uncomfortable to me. I don't know. I didn't like it, but whatever, to each his own. It's like when I see girls work out at the gym with their hair down, I don't get it. It makes no sense. Does it make sense to you, Steven?
From a look standpoint, it looks great.
Well, don't say that. That's exactly why they do it.
Exactly. That's why they do it.
Oh, you're horrible. Well, either way, I just was glad that his family kind of pointed it out. They asked him, they're like, do you ever take that hat off? He said no. And it was so great because one of the family members was like, well, what does it smell like? Gross. I mean, no one, that's my thought, is that it would smell gross. No one knows. I think he needs to retire the hat, get a fresh one. It just sounds disgusting to me. Either way, Jillian is welcomed with a warm welcome, and I think it kind of gets her in a little bit of a better place, but I think she's still very hesitant as she's starting off with her workouts with him. So we see them working out, and I guess Jay lives on like this ranch property, and he grew up on this ranch property, and Jillian looks... At first, it looks like it's a little bit of hell for her. She is sweating bullets and talking about how hot Missouri is. They don't have the gym. They don't have the equipment. So we see Jay pushing wheelbarrows. We see him jumping over haystacks. We see him doing push-ups in the dirt. I mean, basically anything that she could use, Jillian was using. And that's one thing I will say about her, is that when Jillian is put in these situations, she is very resourceful all the time, anytime. He's like throwing tires, all kinds of things. So we see them working out on the ranch, and it just looks miserable for them. But it continues to get better. Later on, we also see them sit down at the property, the home on the property that Jay grew up on. And it was this home that his mother designed from the ground up, and it was built from the ground up. He was raised there, and his mother continued to live there. Well, about, I don't know how many years ago it was. Well, 6 years ago, as an adult, his parents got divorced. And he talks about how hard that was for him. And then later on, so I guess it couldn't have been that long, the house burned down, literally to the ground and below. There was like a massive hole in the ground where this property used to be. And Jillian, doing the Jillian thing that she does, sits him down and asks him all these deep questions. You know, what else did you lose on that day that the house burnt down? And at first, Jay's kind of like, I don't know what you mean. You know, what else could I lose? I was sad. This is the house I grew up in, blah, blah, blah. But then she, like, I think she kind of was dragging it out of him. If somebody was like, no, Lauren, what did you lose? And they asked me that like 10 times, I might start to cry too, for probably no reason. Afterwards, you know, I think she kind of tries to pull it out of him, broke him down, and he says that his answer when she says, what else died that day, or what else did you lose? He said he died that day. Now, again, And I'm sure many of you do this at home. When you're seeing people on the show going through these situations, you try to put yourself in that same situation, you know, to kind of be a little bit more understanding. I was thinking about my childhood home and how much I loved it and everything that I went through in that home and how sad, yes, sad I would be if that home burnt down. Like, really sad. But I don't know if I would say that a part of myself died that day or that I died that day. And so I couldn't help but feel like this was a little bit exaggerated. And I feel like, yes, Jay certainly probably has issues that led him to his weight gain and whatever he's been through over the past few years. But I feel like there's got to be something outside of your childhood home burning down. You know, he even said, I have my own family now. He lives in a different house now. I mean, I have a hard time grasping that and feeling like that is really at the root of his weight gain. Either way, it was definitely a great bonding moment for him and Jillian. And I mean, they got a lot closer and I think it revamped him. But what I did love about what Jillian said, and I think anybody can apply this, is she talks about, you know, being angry, being upset, being sad, but letting yourself be that in that moment. If you're sad, if you're angry, yeah, so what? You're sad, you're angry. Let yourself be that and accept it and be okay with it and let yourself be sad. Let yourself cry. But to channel it differently, you know, rather than things that comfort you, if that's food, which it is for so many people on the show, channeling it in a different way. She's like, you know what? If this really upsets you, you're crying right now, be mad. Let's go work out and I'll show you where to be mad. And I tried to envision what that would be like. And if I was really upset and I went to work out, if I made the choice to work out when I was upset, I think I might work out that much harder. But I think the hard part is getting yourself to do it when you're upset.
Yeah, but you work out super well when you're really pissed off.
Right? No, like, I agree with you.
I've won 1 6-minute mile in my life. I felt like I was going to die afterwards, but I did it because I was super angry and I just didn't even notice I was out of breath because your mind's somewhere else.
Yeah, I completely agree. I could probably only think of, I can think of one instance where I was so upset at something that I ran more than I ever have. And I hate running. I hate it. I think it's horrible. I love if I can do it. You know, I think it's something, I would love to be able to run or to be a runner or to be good at it. But I hate it so much. I can't even tell you. So I can understand what she's saying, but I do think that the hard part is choosing to work out when you're sad, because sometimes you just want to lay there and be depressed. So, I don't know, there's a struggle in that. Either way, he just continues to kick ass on that ranch. We then cut to Delvette, and after motivating Ruben, now he's kind of moved on to Rachel. He mentions this, and I never really noticed this, but he mentions that Rachel's actually the biggest loser in the house, which I didn't know that. I don't even believe that, but I don't think that they would say that if that wasn't real. What I do know is that Rachel, from the very beginning, I have said, is somebody to keep your eye on, because I don't know what it is about her, but you could see that when she works out, like, she seems very sweet and quiet, and her backstory is that, you know, right now, she lives at home, she works at home, and it's just her and her dog. And so she really doesn't have much of a social life. You could tell she is very quiet and reserved and really lacks a lot of self-confidence. But for some reason, this entire season so far, when you see her work out, she's a beast. You know, like, she's not saying anything. She's not talking big or anything, but you see it in her when she's actually working out that she has some intensity behind her. Well, Rachel, as we know, used to be a competitive swimmer. And I remember this, and they brought it up again, that Rachel, she was swimming, I guess, at a national level in high school and was offered multiple college scholarships for swimming. But because she was dating some boy, she gave up those scholarships to be with a guy. That's bad news. That is like mistake 101. Even if I was like head over heels with somebody in high school and wanted to be with them, I had always heard of stories like that where people give up things for a guy. And I think even if I wanted to, I would hope that I would choose against that. Because I honestly think it almost like curses you a bit. I think when you do something like that, you're destined to fail. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I'm sure there's plenty of people that could prove me wrong on that, but I just think that's such a sad story. And she carries so much guilt for making that decision because then she went through this horrible breakup, which could have been predicted. Who are her friends out there and that did not tell her? Maybe you did, maybe you tried to stop her, but somebody didn't get through to her and she went through this horrible breakup. Then spirals into sad depression because she gave up all of this for this guy that she had this breakup with. And there comes the weight gain. She doesn't get back in the pool. So at this point, Dalvette takes her to a pool, and she has not been in a competitive pool, she says, for about 6 years. So she's a little scared, you know? I think when you're used to being so great at something and then you don't do it for a while, you're scared to get back in and see just how much you've kind of, how much you've lost, I guess, if that's the right term, with your speed, your agility. I think you don't want to face the reality that you're not as good as you once were and you're scared to see what it is. It's like people that don't step on the scale for a long time and then you're scared to do it because you know you've lost or you've gained weight, but you don't want to face the reality of how much it really is. That is kind of where I see her anxiety. But you know what? Dalvette takes her there and she's got to go through with it. So she gets in her swimsuit. She jumps in the pool. She does the butterfly, which is what she used to do competitively. And Dalvette times her. I think the first attempt was 1:24. And Dalvette seems all positive about it when he's telling her. And she, just like the look of disappointment on her face, she was like, really? That is so, like she was so sad. She's like, that is so slow. But you know, all it takes is that first try that then pushes her to want to try again because she's so determined to beat that time because she's so upset by it. So she does it again. She shaves off like 4 seconds, which I think is pretty great. I'm not a swimmer or a competitive swimmer by any means. But I think when you can shave off 4 seconds of something, that's really good. You know, I don't know. So yeah. So she does that and she does it. We see her doing it over again and pushing herself. And she kind of comes out with a new sense of motivation and feeling really good about herself that she actually did that. And I think it's making her realize, I need to keep going. I'm going to do this again because she loves it. You know, she got back in there. I think if I got back on the volleyball court, I think I would love it and want to just do it more and more. It's like an addiction, you know? Personally, that's what I think. So that was kind of the great moment that we see with Rachel. So with Dalvette's team in this particular episode, we really only see the focus on Ruben and on Rachel. Then we see Bob's team, and I kind of love this moment. Bob's team is working out with a vengeance, and here's Hap, who's actually really great, and I really like Hap's personality. I think he's very driven. Hap talks about Bobby and basically is just so pissed at Bobby because Bobby is pulling insane numbers and always losing a lot of weight. But you can visibly see that he's moving slower than Hap, not doing as much, maybe not as motivated, not as aggressive, just not as enthusiastic about the whole thing. I do think that's part of Bobby's personality. He does seem very mellow. But Hap is just pissed because Bobby's pulling these big numbers. And I guess on, you know, the last week, Hap, he's not pulling as big of numbers as he should be for his size and for the intensity that he's working out at. So I just thought that was kind of a funny moment. But then we get to the weigh-in. Before we get to the weigh-in, however, I do want to take a moment to thank all of you guys that are watching and subscribing on YouTube, or sorry, subscribing on iTunes and rating us and commenting. always love to see that. And also for those of you that are commenting on YouTube, we get a lot of really great comments. And I want to say 2 weeks ago, some really great comments from you guys. So I want to see what you guys have to say on this episode because it covers 2 episodes. So there's a lot to talk about. So please continue to subscribe, rate on iTunes, and also go to YouTube. Let's get into the weigh-in, shall we? We start off with the red team. Ruben gets up there, and I don't know what to say. I love Ruben so much. I love his personality, but it was so sad because Ruben pulled only 2 pounds. I don't know what it is, but I feel like Ruben's just not having his moment. Like they say about Bobby, Bobby's finding a sweet spot, and Ruben's just not getting that. I feel like we see low numbers from him. Then Jennifer gets up on the scale. She loses 4 pounds. Not horrible, but not great. Tanya gets up and she pulls 4 pounds. And I have loved Tanya from day one. Just kind of her attitude about the whole thing. She seems like such a fun person, somebody I would really like if I knew her. And I was bummed. I'm so bummed for her. She's just never pulling good numbers. Constantly pulling low numbers. I'm just waiting for this lady to pull like a 9. And she's not, which is sad. So it's either she's got to pull a big number or she's not going to make it super far. Then we have David who gets up on the scale. And I love David. David definitely has a tough story that we are constantly reminded of. And I've said this before. I don't need to hear it again. I know what David's past is like. I don't need to be reminded of it. David's like a new person, and he is so motivated and so positive, which is what I really love about him. And you know what I love most? He's so focused on himself. I feel like he's not really paying attention to anybody else. And I think because he's so focused on himself, that's why he's been so successful. So David gets up there, and at this point, he's really excited because he wants to break the 300s. He wants to get below that number. He hasn't been in who knows how long. He gets up there and he loses 7 pounds, putting him right at 299. So everybody's excited for him. He's excited. And it's just one more successful week for David. And I think we might see David in the end. I'm going to be confident and make that prediction right now, but that's just a guess. Then Rachel gets up there and like she says, and like we know, this is a big week for her because she conquered the pool like we just talked about. She gets up there at 183 at this point. She weighs in at 178 and loses 5 pounds. And that's not a bad number for somebody at her size. That's pretty good. So the red team weighs in, losing 22 pounds at 1.68%. The blue team then gets up, and at this point, in order to beat the red, they need to lose more than 18 pounds. Hap gets up there, and you're pulling for him because we know how upset he is that Bobby's pulling big numbers. He's not. And Hap pulls 2 pounds. That is it. He's 334 pounds. He could still be losing double digits. And he's working out so hard. And he breaks into laughter, basically. And I didn't know how Bob was going to react to that because I feel like we've seen contestants do that before. And they're like, why are you laughing? This isn't even funny. This isn't a joke. This is your health. But Bob actually agrees. Bob starts laughing and says, I see how hard that Hap is working out. I see what he's doing. There's something wrong. We need to change something. And yes, this is absolutely laughable. So I feel for Hap, and I see that he's working out so hard. So I'm hoping that whatever's going on with him isn't what ultimately gets him kicked off. Matt gets up there and he only loses 4. Matt's another person that's just not totally impressing me. Chelsea gets up. She loses 6 pounds. And this girl, we haven't focused on her much. I know that Bob's a big fan of her. We saw that, you know, in the episode that he saved Matt. He really wanted to save that for Chelsea. But you know what? She hasn't needed it because she is this like silent killer apparently. Leave it to Bobby. Bobby gets up. And at this point, he needs to lose more than 6 pounds so that the blue team is safe. And of course, in your head, you're thinking, is he going to pull a low number and kind of make Hap happy? Or is he going to do exactly what Hap's been saying he's been doing and pull this massive number? Well, sure enough, he gets up there and he loses 12 freaking pounds. I don't know how this guy is doing it. Whatever his secret is, whatever his metabolism is, I wish I had it, but he's a little bit insane. So he loses 12 pounds. The blue team's completely safe, which leaves it in the hands of the white team, which is because of this, you know, Jay going home, leaves it in Jay's hands to beat out the red team. Because if the white team loses this weigh-in, they will be down to 2 people, which would be horrible. Regardless, they weigh in Marie and Toomey to see where they stand, and they pulled good numbers for themselves. Marie loses 5 pounds, and Toomey loses 7. And I think that's really great, and it just goes to show you that maybe they needed this change of workout. So Jay gets up there, and at first you're thinking, oh my God, there's all this pressure on Jay to pull the weight for the white team. But when Allie says that he only needs to lose more than 3 pounds to win this weigh-in, I'm thinking, oh, that's fine. He could do that. That's not that big of a deal, unless if it's some random, weird, like, number, like, -2. If he only loses 2, that would be strange, whether he was on the gym or in the gym or off the ranch or whatever. Pulling only 2 pounds is a low number, and I didn't think that was going to happen. But I also didn't think this was going to happen. Jay gets up there at 219, and he loses 12 pounds. He's at 207, so he's getting closer to being under that 200 mark. And even more so, he gets up there, and he takes off his shirt, and he's already lost his belly completely, which I just think goes to show you he's just losing weight fast, which is absolutely amazing. And then, again, just like last week's weigh-in where we see Bob crying and emotional, we see Jillian crying and emotional, which was not expected, but Jillian cries and says, I love this guy. This guy is going to be my friend for life. And I think aside from Marie and Toomey needing this change and working out with Bob and doing a different workout, I also think Jillian needed this time at home, or needed this time with Jay, and needed this break and needed to get to know him a little bit better. I think it revamped him, made their bond a little stronger, which hopefully will show in the next episodes. So I think Jay going home was actually a positive thing for the white team because they were not doing well. With that, the red team loses the weigh-in, and sadly, once again, my Ruben Studdard goes home. And I don't think there's going to be another chance for him to come back, unfortunately, like there was with the first time. So all I can say is that I look forward to seeing Ruben at the beginning of next week's weigh-in. Dolvett says to him, I want you to shock the world. And so we will see next week if that is what he actually does. And that, Steven, wraps up our 2 episodes. So thank you guys for joining me. If you want to continue the conversation, go to iTunes, YouTube, and you could tweet at me at LO_VALLES, or on Instagram at LOVALLES. All right, thanks guys. I'll see you next week.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV on YouTube. For more of your favorite after shows and interviews, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to share your opinion on the episode in the comment section below here. We'd love to see what you guys are buzzing about. Thanks again. Buzz you later.